Welcome. My name is Corinne Waldow. I'm the Economic Development Director for the Boulder Chamber. I want to welcome you to the manufacturing session this week, sort of office hours for critical and non-critical manufacturing to ask questions, get latest updates, and provide some feedback. Thank all our partners, all the chambers, economic development authorities, Manufacturers Edge, some others who've helped get the word out about the safer reopening of our businesses. If you would like to raise your hand and ask questions, since we have a limited number on this session, you can do so in the Q&A portion. Otherwise, you can also put it in the Q&A, and I'll be asking you some questions through polls at the end. At this time, I'm actually going to hand it off to Boulder County Public Health, who's been a wonderful partner in this and providing a lot of time and resources to help our businesses safely reopen. So Zach, please take it away.
Thanks, Corinne, and thanks for the continued partnership of the Boulder Chamber as well as our other economic partners across Boulder County. So today we have our manufacturing office hours, and we're going to dive into the face covering overview, safer at home overview, resources to support you, and Q&A. As we get more familiar with the safer at home regulations, we expect to spend more time on the Q&A until things change again, which they will. So just as a reminder, we are under safer at home here in Boulder County. We have been since May 9th, as well as there are face covering orders from Boulder County, as well as many of the municipalities across Boulder County. Camping began on the 12th at state parks. And then I believe we are all anxiously awaiting the update from the state, scheduled to come on May 25th, where we'll hear about spring skiing, outdoor recreation, restaurants, summer camps, and possibly other changes to safer at home, perhaps impacting manufacturing, but we don't have any insight to that at this point. But as always, just want to remind everybody that safer at home will continue to evolve, whether that happens on the 25th for manufacturing or not. And we will be under some form of change from our normal life until we have a vaccine, treatment, or herd immunity. And really, vaccine or treatment are probably going to be the first two. I saw a statistic today that they're estimating that about 3% of Colorado has contracted COVID, and we need to get to 70% before herd immunity happens. So it'll be a while on that one. So just steel yourselves that this is going to be, what sort of the status quo for the next coming months. And part of that is COVID-19 is just as contagious as it always was. Even though we are loosening restrictions, that does not mean that we should relax in terms of our safety precautions. In fact, quite the opposite. In order to loosen restrictions, we need to be more strict with our safety precautions. So continue to stay home as much as possible. If your employees can work remote, continue to have them do that. Continue to practice, the maximum social distancing and face coverings possible, as well as make, every other change that is suggested as or required. And that way we have the best chance of not backsliding, which is the scenario that no one wants to be in. So speaking of, here's the history of average new cases in Boulder County. So this is the 5-day average. So you can see that we've come down from our peak, and we are trending in the right direction. And I just looked up today's figures before the call, and it drops a little bit further still. So that is all good news. One thing to note is that because of the incubation period of COVID-19, these are trailing figures, which means it can take up to 14 days from exposure to have any symptoms. So today's data really reflects the contraction of COVID that may have happened, last week or the week before. So it's not, what are the new transmissions that are happening today, but it's the transmissions that had happened last week or the week before. But we do see it going in the right direction. We want to keep it that way. and all of the safety practices and protocols that you all put in place, as well as everyone else across the county, are crucial to that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Alexandra Phillips, who will take it from here.
Thanks, Zach, and thanks, Corinne, at the Chamber, especially. So I'm Alexandra Phillips. I'm with Boulder County Public Health as well, working with the manufacturing group. And one of the big questions that seems to keep coming up, understandably, is the difference between critical and non-critical manufacturing rules, what you have to go by for each thing. And the answer is the critical manufacturing goes by what we're calling the general rules that all businesses have to go by. Non-critical have to go by both the general rules and additional non-critical rules. And I'll go ahead and bring up the checklist real quickly to show you that. If you click on the checklist, and I'll be talking quite a bit more about the checklist in a minute, here is, oops, that's the office one. It's not the one I wanted. I wanted this one. So here it is at the very top, critical and non-critical manufacturing. Zach did an amazing job of taking out the extra language. So it's just the general language of what critical and non-critical both have to go by there. And then if you scroll down just a bit, you'll see additional requirements for non-critical manufacturing only. And that's for, as I said, that's this for the non-critical. And the big thing here, one of the very big differences between the two is that for non-critical, it's 10 employees per fully enclosed room. And a room is with walls and a closable door. So that's the big difference between the two. And now I'll go back to my PowerPoint. So that hopefully will explain that a bit. There's going to be a slight updated wording on the website to make that even more clear, to point both those out. Another thing that has come up is if a facility does have a separate office space, they do have to go by the office space rules, and there's a separate checklist for that. The big mention on that is that it's at 50% capacity. And there was an update. It wasn't so much an update. It was actually something that in the order from the state, the wording was a production environment in the order. And we had originally had that interpreted in the guidelines one way, and somebody asked a question. One of the manufacturers contacted me, asked a question. I was able to, we, the public health department, were able to look more closely at the rules, and it is 10 people per room and maintaining social distancing for the non-critical. So that's a slight change of what I said last week. 10 people per room, not per total facility. So once again, a manufacturer came to me and asked that question. I was able to take that up the chain and get clarification on that. So anytime you do see something that you see that might be that you're reading the state rule differently than our checklist, let us know, and we'll take a look at that. There's a ton of information, ton of checklists for all the different types of businesses. You can see on the right, on the lower right, there's the manufacturing and the office, and there's other ones. There's also checklists for the cleaning, even a sample face covering script for anyone who is visiting your facility. And then two particular resources that would fit just for manufacturing. First, I wanted Energize Colorado. If you go to their website, they have the hand cleaner, masks, a lot of things that you'll be needing. Manufacturer's Edge was on some of the original webinars for manufacturing, and they offer a lot of services. And I was just told that they also offer a free service to look at your space to help you reconfigure that. So you might want to check in with Manufacturer's Edge for any services they can give you. And Boulder County Public Health can't provide legal advice. That's a big thing. As I said before, if you see something contradictory between the state order and what we're saying, do let us know. But if it's something deeper, you might need to go to your own attorney to find that out. But we're working to support you in every way we can, especially because the requirements are changing. We might see different requirements coming down on May 26th, as Zach mentioned. So we're working to support you. And I have gotten questions and talked to one manufacturer that did have an outbreak. An outbreak is 2 or more confirmed or suspected cases within 14 days. And we're asking people to immediately report those using the outbreak form or using that email. And the sooner you contact us about an outbreak, the better it is, because we can determine, actually the epidemiologists with Boulder County Public Health can determine what needs to happen. If it's a very quick assessment right immediately after the outbreak, might not have to close. They can look at that on a quick assessment and figure out what needs to be done. So the sooner you contact them, if you think you have an outbreak, the better. I mentioned some of these sites. The checklists that I mentioned before are on the boco.org. So that's where those checklists are. The second website, that covid19.colorado.gov, is the state website. There you can go for a lot of the information and also the orders. There's a lot of information on their website. Of course, the Boulder Chamber of Commerce is a great place to go for different additional information. We're holding these every week. So next week, 1 o'clock, again, the manufacturing one will be on. And just a little kind of secret, if you sign up for it but can't make it on that hour, you will then get the email from Corinne sending you the YouTube link to watch it when you are able to watch it. And so that's a nice thing to know for all of these. You can do that for all of these. And then we do have the weekly Spanish sessions that cover all the sectors. And that, I think, is on Wednesdays at 6, I think. And I think it's on the Boulder Chamber and the Latino Chamber as well. And here's our contact information. Again, that covidbiz@bouldercounty.org is a really great email to keep handy. And the phone number, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, but I'm not sure if it'll be open on Memorial Day, but on all other days. I'll find that out if it's going to be open on Memorial Day. So now we've got some discussion questions that we are just trying to get a feel for how things are looking for you. I slightly changed these questions from what everyone else, all the other sectors are getting. It says customers-vendors, because I heard last week there's more vendors probably coming in than customers. Corinne, did you want to take them through this, or should I go ahead and ask?
I got it. So they're actually going to be poll questions that pop up on your screen. While we're doing those, getting feedback from you, we will answer the questions. We have at least one question that's coming through Q&A. So the first question that's being asked is, in the last 24 hours, what % of customers customers/vendors do you estimate wore a face covering while coming into your business? So I'm launching that right now. If you could answer that, that'd be great. And then we have a question. It's a long one, so let me read through it. My company's manufacturing operation is considered critical. We have 3 shifts of operation, and we have all of our manufacturing personnel coming to the workplace daily. We're meeting requirements for social distancing, masks, temp screening, and so forth. I'm assuming that in addition to our manufacturing staff, we can bring up to 50% of our office staff into the workplace and meet the requirements of BCPH, the work staff limitations, while meeting other requirements for office workers, of course. Is this correct? So basically, looking at the manufacturing space and the office space, what are some of the requirements, and whether they can continue to operate them both simultaneously?
The manufacturing, if they're critical, they need to be maintaining the 6-foot distancing. Non-critical, they need to be maintaining 6-foot distancing and 10 people per room. And then in the office space, it's 50% capacity. And that would mean every other desk is full, or whatever it would need to reconfigure the office space to also maintain the 6-foot distancing. Zach, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. The short answer is yes. And I would direct you to review the office space business requirements at the state Safer at Home page, or on Boulder County's office-based business checklist.
One of the things that I will do in this week's follow-up email is add the office last webinar for office, the checklist, as well as the next session for office if you have office questions, because I believe a lot of manufacturers have kind of gotten through their manufacturing piece and now they're starting to look at their office settings. So I'll get that information out to the manufacturers after this call.
Mm-hmm. And if I may add to that, one thing I haven't really touched on at all in this call is, other than the distancing, there's a lot on the checklist about cleaning high touch surfaces, and also symptom checks. And that is all on the checklist. You can go there and get the additional information. One manufacturer was asking questions, called, and it was a great thing, asked questions, realized they didn't have the most recent symptom check list, which is a really nice thing that you can get on the website. So you have just the sheet, a form that you can use for all the symptom checks, because you do need to do symptom checking. So it's not just the 6-foot distancing and the 50% capacity for office space. There's the symptom checks and cleaning and a lot of things to make things safe.
I had another question that got emailed to me, but I'm going to first launch the next poll, which has to do with social distancing behavior. How would you rate customer vendor behavior at maintaining at least 6-foot distancing when they are around other customers or staff? So if you could answer those questions. The question was around symptom checks. So explaining a little bit about the requirements for in-person symptom checks, and if they are able to allow their staff to do symptom checks before coming in, what do they need to do? Do those need to be emailed in? What are some of the requirements for the at-home symptom checks?
Mm-hmm. The at-home, let me take a quick look at this checklist, because that's where that information is. Let's see. Does it say on the checklist about, I do know you do need to write down the symptoms when they come in to keep track, so that keep that as a record. And when they're home, I think Zach, can you talk to that? I don't want to take time to find it on that. When they're at home, do they need to bring it in or report it? How does that work?
Yeah, so it needs to be reported before they come in, obviously. And that can either happen electronically or on paper. And then it's really, the order does not go into a lot of, nitty gritty details on, how exactly you handle that. You could set up a Google form, you could do it over email, whatever works best for you in your situation.
So we've heard some best practices from some businesses. They've identified that COVID coordinator, who's the person who receives the information. They've done Google Forms, but not Google spreadsheets where everybody can see everybody else's information, but more of a form where someone can submit it before they come in. They've allowed emails. They've had, if they're small offices, the phone call before coming in, just to record it. But one thing that, we had one person come to us and say, hey, we have this Google spreadsheet that everybody just fills it in. And we had another call where a lawyer was like, yeah, probably shouldn't make that public. So just letting you know some things that came out on other calls.
And to that point, if there's questions, we frequently get questions around, I've never handled this type of employee health information before. I'm not quite sure how to do that correctly. Does HIPAA apply? Does ADA apply? For most manufacturers, it's probably not going to be HIPAA. It covers, HIPAA covers businesses that routinely handle health information, doctors, et cetera. So most manufacturers are going to fall under ADA guidance. And if you go to the Boulder county.org or boco.org/COVID-19 business link that Alexandra had up on the screen, there is on our page under Boulder County Guidance and Tools an ADA guidance about employee health information. And I'll warn you, it's long, it's detailed, but that's the good news, is that there's a good chance that the answer to your question is in there because it's pretty thorough.
And it is a link that I do send out, and it has been sent out the last 2 weeks. So I'll continue to send that one out because it is a question we get a lot, and especially about the health checks. I'm going to launch the next poll, which is a little bit about what is most stressful, if anything, for your staff about the face covering and physical distancing requirements. You can select all that apply. And if anybody has questions, you can, on this call, you can raise your hands since I'm able to manage the limited numbers this week, or submit it via Q&A. So just to clarify something Alexandra brought up, Manufacturer's Edge was on the call a couple weeks ago, Tom Bugnitz, and they've been a great partner of ours in the fact that they are a resource for manufacturers. And one of the things that they're providing is some consultation and some advisement to manufacturers that are having a hard time meeting some of their requirements or need to find out best practices or some other pieces. So we do send out that information as well as a resource. That's their specialty is manufacturing. A lot of you on the call have worked with them, so don't be afraid to reach out to them about some specific, I can't move this equipment to here, or how do I meet social distancing with this type of equipment and so forth. Janine Lettingham is the local representative, and she'll get back to you. If you've never met her, you can email me and I'll get you her information. All right, so we see a lot of times the fear of getting sick coming up, and the ensuring your employees that they're not going to get sick, or that you're doing all the best practices you can. I just want to make sure everybody knows about the sign resources as well that we send out. Some of those signs to put out. Alexandra, what are some of the common signs people put out in the manufacturing spaces?
Well, of course, the hand cleaning signs, remembering to wear a mask sign, remembering the 6-foot distancing. And I think a lot of us, it's the 6-foot distancing to remember, because it's so different from the way the world used to be just a few months ago. So a nice sign to remember to do the 6-foot distancing is a helpful sign.
And that is one of them we have. And then we've heard from manufacturers and other businesses about the common areas, the water cooler, the areas they didn't even think about, the coffee maker where people would convene normally, and making sure there's either signage or closing those areas off.
And I would add,
oh, go ahead.
Just in terms of, employee fears, obviously there's frequently in the news about, different large manufacturers having outbreaks. And if you're not already communicating clearly with your employees the steps that you're taking, and getting their feedback on how they feel about that, I would highly recommend doing that. I think that's a real best practice for your relations with your employees and their understanding of the steps that you're taking. So yeah, just would recommend doing that if you're not already.
And a great way to do that is by that checklist I kept talking about. If you fill that out and post that, that's a good way for them to see what is required and that it's being followed, because it is scary times. I totally understand that.
So in all the sessions that we've been in, one of the ones that comes up a lot on this question is knowing how to properly wear face coverings. Specifically, the cross, putting them on, fear of cross-contamination. So we've expressed that feedback to Boulder County Public Health, and we're working on, where we can get you more resources. There's lots of great videos out there. Zach, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, National Jewish Health has a great video on donning and doffing a face covering. We'll get that to you, Corinne.
Okay. Yeah, I will send that out because there's oftentimes that question that comes up. All right, I'm gonna launch the last poll, and that is about resources that you may need for your business at this time. And, answer as many that are possible or that come to mind. I see that a couple people on this call have never been on one of the calls before, so that's great to see. Any advice on reaching out to Boulder County Public Health? What kind of things do people reach out to you guys about?
I've gotten one call if they need need to report an outbreak. That was a good call. What other calls? Questions on a lot of the things that I've gotten questions on is the difference between the critical and the non-critical and what they need to follow.
Okay, well, we again, employee training on the PPE and the disinfection, which we'll try to get some more resources in the coming weeks about that, especially as more people get into the buildings. We did get a question about if someone reports that there's an outbreak. Now they're required to report the outbreak, but will it automatically shut them down? And Zach, Lane talked about this on another call, and I think you've gotten this question a couple times. What is kind of the procedure on that?
Yeah, so there's a if you report an outbreak, we'll send you a checklist of information. You can also find it on the state COVID-19 Safer at Home page. There's a bar sort of towards across the bottom of the screen that talks about workplace outbreaks. When you open that document, you're going to be a little overwhelmed because the first 6 pages are not about outbreaks, but about preventing them. And then at the bottom of page 7, it actually starts talking about what to do if you have an outbreak, which is, again, 2 or more suspected or confirmed cases within 14 days. It is a best practice to close your facility and clean it for 24 hours, close it for 24 hours and clean it. And you want to clean it towards the end of those 24 hours, not the start. However, every scenario is different, right? Having 2 employees, who are sick that spent 5 minutes in the facility is different than, having 2 employees who are sick that have been, coughing over every machine in the facility all day long. So, the best thing to do is to contact us, and we'll help you evaluate, what level of precaution cleaning procedures is necessary. So yeah, that would be our recommendation. Is it's not one size fits all, and there's not a mandate to shut down and clean, unless we looked at the scenario and it was like, whoa, this is a real serious deal, and that needs to happen. And if that's true, you would want us to, you would want to do that too, because then it's going to be really in your best interest as well. But we recognize that every scenario is different and every exposure is different, and so we'll work to be as customized and tailored to what the exact conditions are in your facility.
Thank you for that. I don't see any more questions. Last chance, raise your hand, put any questions in. Again, we'll send a taping of this, a recording of this webinar. We'll send a list of the resources mentioned, including ones that have been mentioned on previous calls, including he just sent me the National Jewish face covering videos that you can share with employees. I will send also the office information. This is the first time that will go out, would be the office information for manufacturers as they're looking at their office spaces. With no more questions, do either one of you have anything you'd like to add at the end, or?
I'll just put, there's the information again. If you can't find that, the COVID, the outbreak reporting form, just you go to the email or the phone number and we'll get that to you.
Mm-hmm. And it is one of the links that I've started adding to the emails is the outbreak reporting, and one of the other facilitators of these webinars sent that to me to start sending out as well. So we'll get that out, and so you can have as much information in one place as possible. But again, go to Boulder County's site, go to the state site, and the Boulder Chamber tries to house a lot of this information. We want to thank you for attending today, for continually asking your questions and making sure that you're opening in a safe manner for our community and for our economy. Thank Boulder County Public Health for 10 hours of calls a week that you've put in and dedicated to businesses to help answer these questions. We hope to see you next week. Send your questions in between, and we will see you then. Bye.
Thanks.